Clark and welcome to the Ancient Civilization News. Let's spin the wheel and see what the topic is for today's news. The topic for today's news is Ancient Aztecs' daily life. Like nearly all the ancient civilizations, the rich lived in luxury and the poor worked. In the ancient Aztec civilization, class structure was very important. The daily life for a poor Aztec was difficult, but for the rich and wealthy, their life was easier. The husband was primarily responsible for supporting the family and going to work, such as to a farm or engage in craft work. The wife's role was to provide the clothing and to weave for the family and to make sure the family has meals every day to stay healthy. The slaves would work for the rich. These slaves were not captured slaves like many other civilizations. They were just normal ancient Aztec citizens. They would either commit a crime and have a punishment to become a slave. For them to get out of slavery, they would have to pay the owners the amount of money they wanted, which didn't usually happen because the slaves could not afford the amount of money that the owners desired. The homes of the poor were huts with thatched roofs. Furniture was limited in these houses. If they were lucky, they would get mats in their houses. They had blankets for bed and pottery for their cooking. Everyone had a garden of their own, including the farmers. The home for the middle class were made of sun-dried brick, which is a dome. The main area of the Aztec shelter was one room split up into four areas. There was an area for the whole family to sleep in, a family shrine where gods would be kept, a place where meals would be prepared, and then there was the eating area. The homes of the rich had homes with similar layout of the middle-class citizens. They would sometimes be made out of better material though, such as lime or stone. These ancient Aztecs' homes would be bigger and more elaborate. Generally speaking, nobles were allowed to decorate their homes with what they wanted, and each home was washed by the slaves to make them look clean and shiny. The ancient Aztec clothing of the common people and slaves sometimes covered very little parts of their body. Magoi clothing rather than cotton was the rule. The slaves wore loincloth. This was sometimes also worn by the common citizens of the Aztecs. They wore this with a long strip of cloth tied in front. The clothing of the upper class would be much more adorned and decorated, though still loincloth and skirts would be worn. There would be a symbol of a particular association on the clothing or in the headdress. The more significant clothing became brightly coloured. Gold was often used in clothing, and pendants, feathers, furs, and many other forms of decorations were used. Jewellery such as necklaces, earrings, and bracelets were also worn by the upper class. Merchants were in a class all on their own, and had certain amount of independence that most people often didn't enjoy. They often were allowed to wear more elaborate clothing, and got more improved privileges. Their clothing would be more comfortable, and the material would be slightly better than the upper-class citizens. Education was one of the most important things to the ancient Aztecs. The fathers were responsible for educating the boys in the family. This was until they reached the age of 10. After the age of 10, the boys would then be educated in a school that connected with a temple. This is because temples were built in order to worship the many different Aztec gods. The ancient Aztecs offered a formal system of education. School was mandatory by law, and girls and slaves had to attend. All schools were highly respected by all the students. Teachers were highly respected by all the students, and every school had to include song and dance because this was important to their religious festivals. For some students, school was very tough, with no breaks or no time to relax at recess. Also, in schools, the ancient Aztecs were very concerned that all their citizens behaved correctly. This code of behaviour was written down, and it was the law. Children were taught correct behaviour in all ancient Aztec schools. There was one school for girls and two schools for boys. The girls learned mainly about religion, and they also had to learn how to cook, sew, weave, and how to care for their children when they grow up. Sons of the upper class school. One of the boys was only for the nobles, the high set of studs, and the sons of wealthy traders and merchants. This school taught law, writing, hieroglyphics, medicine, building, engineering, and they learnt details of their history and religious beliefs. The students were taught how to speak well, so later in life they will be able to receive a respectful and well-paid job. Sons of the Commoner School. The Sons of the Commoner School's main job were to train warriors and farmers. Thank you very much for joining us on the Ancient Civilization News. We hope you'll learn a bit more about the ancient Aztecs' everyday life. Let's spin the wheel and see what topic it will be for next week. The topic for next week will be Ancient Aztecs Religion. Thank you very much, and we hope you enjoyed it.